The luminous glow of the orbital station Veen-Roke 7 cast a faint green halo over the neighboring gas giant. Inside, Captain Drekal of the Intergalactic Security Confederation reclined in his command chair, sipping a protein-infused beverage that was supposed to taste like Nutrient Paste Deluxe. It did not. The drink tasted like despair. The quiet hum of the station was broken by an urgent ping from the surveillance hub. "Captain, we've intercepted an unauthorized vessel entering restricted space," chirped XIX, the station's communications officer. Her frilled appendages twitched with excitement, a sure sign she expected some kind of thrilling chase. Drekal groaned. His day had been going well until now. "Identify the ship," Drekal grumbled, straightening in his seat. He set down his disappointing beverage with a resigned sigh. "It's a..." XIX hesitated, which was unusual for her. "A human civilian transport ship. The registry says it's called Starlight Odyssey. No active weapons, minimal shielding, and very little in the way of fuel reserves." Drekal raised an eye stalk. "A civilian ship? What kind of idiot drifts into restricted territory without backup? Humans should know better. Should I activate the tractor beam and detain them, Captain?" "Do it," Drekal ordered, already imagining the paperwork he'd have to file for this. "Let's figure out what they're doing out here before we return them to their shiny blue dirt orb." Moments later, the Starlight Odyssey was pulled into one of the station's docking bays. The Confederation crew moved swiftly, scanning the vessel for potential threats and guiding its occupants into the containment chamber. Drekal strode into the observation room with his usual air of authority, his tall, lanky frame silhouetted against the sterile glow of the chamber. On the other side of the glass stood the intruders, two very small humans. Drekal blinked. The taller one, a gangly pre-adult human, perhaps on the verge of what they called teenage years, was glaring at the observation window with arms crossed. Beside them, the smaller one, a round-faced juvenile, was clutching a stuffed creature of some kind. Its fur was vibrant purple, a hue that seemed biologically improbable for Earth fauna. "Are those children?" Drekal asked slowly. XIX tilted her head, studying the screen. "It appears so. The older one is approximately 13 Earth cycles. The smaller one is 8. Gender identities unclear. Humans are annoyingly hard to classify. What in the name of the 12 nebulae are children doing on a ship alone?" XIX shrugged. "Human behavior rarely makes sense. Shall I interrogate them?" Drekal pinched the bridge of his cranial ridge, a universal sign of exasperation. "No, I'll do it myself. It's my turn to deal with this nonsense." As the chamber doors hissed open, the taller child immediately launched into a tirade. "You can't just kidnap us. That's illegal. Do you even know what laws are? When my mom finds out, she's going to sue your, weird squid faces." Drekal stared at them, momentarily taken aback. He wasn't a squid. His species, the Krolak, were a proud reptilian race with sleek, emerald scales and intimidating dorsal fins. He didn't appreciate the comparison. "First of all," Drekal said, his voice low and deliberate, "you are trespassing in restricted space, which is a violation of Confederation law. You are the criminals here, not me." The smaller child clutched their stuffed creature tighter. "We didn't mean to. The ship just kinda stopped working." "And why were you piloting a ship without a certified adult?" Drekal demanded. The older one squared their shoulders. "We're not giving you any more information without a lawyer." Drekal's dorsal fin twitched. "We don't have human lawyers here." "Then we're not talking," the child declared, plopping onto the floor with a defiant huff. The younger one followed suit, mimicking their siblings' posture. Drekal turned to 19, who was standing in the doorway, her frills twitching with what he assumed was amusement. "Is this normal human behavior?" he asked. "From juveniles?" "Yes. They call it a tantrum. It's a form of resistance." "Wonderful," Drekal muttered. "This is why I avoid organic species." He returned his attention to the children. "Listen," he said, trying to sound less menacing, "we're not here to hurt you. We just need to understand how you ended up in restricted space." The older child exchanged a glance with their sibling, then sighed. "Our parents sent us to one of those dumb space camps, okay? They said it'd teach us responsibility or whatever. But the camp sucked and we hated it, so we kinda commandeered a ship." "You stole a ship?" Drekal asked, horrified. "We didn't steal it," the younger one piped up. "We borrowed it. We were gonna give it back." Drekal stared at them. "You borrowed a ship, flew into restricted Confederation space, and nearly caused an intergalactic incident, because you didn't like camp?" The older one shrugged. "Pretty much." Drekal groaned. This was going to be a long day. The rest of Section 1 unfolds as Drekal tries to navigate the cultural minefield of dealing with human children, the kids revealing tidbits of their resourcefulness, and the hint of a larger mystery surrounding how their ship ended up so far from its intended course. Let me know if you'd like to continue. The containment chamber was quieter now, but it was the kind of quiet that unnerved Drekal. The two human children sat cross-legged on the floor, whispering to each other. Drekal didn't need a universal translator to recognize the conspiratorial tone. Every fiber of his being screamed they are planning something. He turned to 19, who was analyzing the scans of the human ship. How does a barely functioning Earth vessel breach the Confederation's border defenses? He asked, his voice laced with disbelief. 19's frills quivered as she accessed the station's data core. The ship's registry indicates it's a decommissioned civilian transport retrofitted for space camps. It doesn't have much in terms of hardware or software sophistication. Frankly, it's a miracle they didn't crash into an asteroid. A miracle? Drekal muttered, rubbing his cranial ridge. More like negligence. What kind of species lets their offspring pilot ships without supervision? Humans, 19 replied simply, as if that answered everything. Drekal sighed and turned back toward the observation window. The older child, who had introduced themselves as Aiden, was now attempting to teach the younger one, Emma, how to spin their stuffed purple creature on one finger like some kind of primitive sports ball. The stuffed creature's bulbous eyes wobbled unervingly with every rotation. All right, enough of this, Drekal muttered. He activated the intercom, his voice booming into the chamber. Human juveniles, Aiden and Emma, your situation is precarious. The Confederation takes breaches of restricted space very seriously. Explain now why you thought this was a good idea. Aiden looked up, unimpressed. We already told you. The camp was boring, the food was terrible, and we wanted to go home. You can't just borrow a ship because of boredom. Do you understand how serious this is? Emma piped up, clutching her stuffed creature. But we didn't mean to go here. The ship's navigation system broke. It wasn't our fault. Broke? Drekal echoed. What do you mean it broke? Was it sabotaged? Aiden shrugged. I dunno. We put in the coordinates for Earth and then it started going all weird. The screens got fuzzy and Emma pressed a bunch of buttons. I was trying to help. Emma interjected defensively. And then we ended up here, Aiden finished. Drekal's dorsal fin twitched again. 19 cross-referenced their route with Confederation border anomalies. I want to know if this was a random accident or if someone tampered with that ship. XX nodded and left the room, her frills still twitching in amusement. Turning back to the children, Drekal sighed. Fine. You're staying in the containment chamber until we figure out what to do with you. You can't just keep us here. Aiden protested. I absolutely can, Drekal retorted. But we're hungry, Emma said, her eyes wide and pleading. And thirsty? Drekal groaned again. What do humans eat, anyway? XIX, compile a nutritional profile for juvenile Terrans? Before he could finish, Aiden cut him off. Pizza. We eat pizza. Pizza? It's bread with tomato sauce and cheese. And sometimes pepperoni. Drekal stared at them baffled. Why would anyone eat such a chaotic combination of ingredients? It's delicious, Emma said, nodding solemnly. Way better than the gross camp food. I'll see what we can replicate, Drekal muttered, gesturing for XIX to make a note. As Drekal turned to leave, Emma's small voice stopped him in his tracks. Are you gonna tell our parents? She asked, her tone suddenly nervous. Drekal hesitated. He was no stranger to interrogation techniques, but this was new territory. The fear in her voice was subtle, but it struck an odd chord in his otherwise rigid sense of duty. Yes, he said finally, his tone softening slightly. Once we figure out how to contact them. They need to know where you are. Emma's face fell and she clutched her stuffed creature tighter. Aiden, however, stepped closer to the glass, his expression hardening. We're not going back to the camp. That's not your choice to make, Drekal replied. Aiden didn't respond, but the defiant glint in his eyes made Drekal uneasy. Hours later, the Starlight Odyssey sat under heavy scans in the docking bay. XX stood beside Drekal, her frills unusually still, a sign that she was concerned. There's something strange about the ship, Captain, she said. The navigation logs were scrambled deliberately. Someone tampered with the system before the juveniles even left the camp. Drekal frowned. Sabotage? Why? XIX projected the ship's log onto the wall. The coordinates they inputted were for Earth, but halfway through the route an override redirected them into restricted space. It's almost as if someone wanted them to be intercepted. Drekal's eyes narrowed. Who would want to use two human children as bait? This doesn't make sense. XIX hesitated. There's more. The stuffed creature the younger one carries, it's emitting a faint energy signature. I initially dismissed it as a toy, but now I think it might be transmitting something. Dreckal's dorsal fin bristled. The toy? Are you saying these juveniles are carrying a tracking device? It's possible, XIX said. But the energy signature is unlike anything I've seen. It's not human tech, and it's certainly not Confederation standard. It's alien. Dreckal's mind raced. If the children were being tracked, then whoever sent them here might already know they'd been intercepted. And if the energy signature wasn't from a known species, then the implications were even more dire. Seal the docking bay, Drekkal ordered. No one gets in or out without my authorization. And put the station on alert. We might have incoming. As XIX scrambled to relay his orders, Drekkal returned to the observation room. Aiden and Emma were sitting in the same spot, whispering to each other again. Emma's stuffed creature was now perched on her lap, its bulbous eyes seeming to watch Drekkal as he entered. What's wrong with Mr. Waffles? Emma asked innocently as Drekkal stared at the toy. Mr. Waffles? He repeated, incredulous. He's my friend, she said, hugging the creature tightly. Drekkal leaned in closer, his voice low and firm. That friend of yours might be putting this entire station in danger. Hand it over. Emma's eyes widened and she shook her head. No. He's mine. Emma, listen to me, Drekkal said, trying to keep his frustration in check. If you don't hand over that toy, I can't guarantee your safety. Aiden stepped in front of his sister, his small frame brimming with defiance. You're not taking it. It's hers. Before Drekkal could respond, a piercing alarm blared through the station. 19's voice crackled through the comm system. Captain. We've detected an unidentified vessel approaching at high speed. It's not responding to hails and its weapons systems are active. Drekkal cursed under his breath. He turned back to the children, his tone sharp. Stay here. Do not touch anything. As he rushed out of the room, Aiden glanced at Emma, who was clutching Mr. Waffles tighter than ever. What do we do now? Emma whispered. Aiden looked at the observation window, his jaw set. We don't wait for them to figure it out. We fix this ourselves. The lights on Rook 7 dimmed as the station shifted to its combat-ready state. Emergency klaxons echoed through the corridors, and Captain Drekkal stormed into the command center. His crew scurried into position, their movements a flurry of precision as they prepared for the approaching vessel. What's the status on the unidentified ship? Drekkal barked, his dorsal fin flaring with tension. 19's frills quivered as she brought up the holographic display. It's closing fast, Captain. Estimated time to intercept, 5 minutes. The vessel is of unknown origin. No Confederation or human markings. Drekkal examined the image on the screen. The ship was sleek and angular, its hull a dark metallic sheen that seemed to shimmer unnaturally. It was outfitted with weaponry far beyond standard civilian or Confederation tech, a clear indication that this was no random passerby. Defensive systems online? Online and primed, 19 confirmed. But, Captain, if they're here for the children? They won't get them, Drekkal interrupted, his voice firm. Should we prepare the juveniles for evacuation? XIX asked. Drekkal hesitated. The logical part of him knew that moving the children was the safest option, but something about this entire situation felt off. Whoever was on that ship had gone through a great deal of effort to lure Aiden and Emma into restricted space. If this was a trap, evacuating them might play right into their hands. No, Drekkal decided. Keep them in containment for now. Double security on their chamber. Understood, Captain. As the crew scrambled to ready their defenses, Dreckal's mind raced. The energy signature from Emma's stuffed toy, the tampered navigation logs, the unknown ship, it was all connected. The only question was how. Back in the containment chamber, Aiden and Emma sat in uneasy silence as the station shuddered around them. The low hum of the alarms made Emma's grip on Mr. Waffles even tighter. Do you think they're coming for us? Emma asked quietly. Aiden frowned, his mind working overtime. I don't know, but I think they are. Emma's eyes widened. What if they're the ones who messed with the ship? That's what I'm thinking, Aiden admitted. He glanced at the observation window, his gaze hardening. We can't just sit here and wait for them to figure it out. We have to do something. But what can we do? They won't even let us out. Aiden looked down at Mr. Waffles, his expression suddenly thoughtful. What if the toy is the reason they're here? Emma pulled the stuffed creature closer. No way. He's just a toy. Then why is the big lizard guy so freaked out about it? Aiden argued. Emma hesitated, her grip loosening slightly. You think Mr. Waffles is special? I think he's more than he looks, Aiden said. He stood up and began pacing. If they're tracking us because of him, we need to figure out why. How? Let me see him, Aiden said, holding out his hand. Emma clutched the toy protectively. What if it breaks? It's already causing trouble. We might as well figure out what's going on with it. Reluctantly, Emma handed over Mr. Waffles. Aiden turned the toy over in his hands, examining it closely. At first glance, it looked like any other stuffed animal, soft, worn from use and entirely unremarkable. But as he squeezed its belly, a faint vibration buzzed beneath the fabric. Did you feel that? Aiden asked. Emma nodded. He does that sometimes. I thought it was just part of the toy. It's not normal, Aiden muttered. He pressed on the toy's belly again, harder this time. The vibration grew stronger and a faint, high-pitched hum filled the air. What are you doing? Emma whispered, her voice tinged with fear. Before Aiden could answer, the toy's bulbous eyes lit up, glowing a soft, eerie blue. The hum grew louder, and a beam of light shot out of the toy's mouth, projecting a series of strange symbols onto the wall. Emma gasped. What is that? Aiden stared at the symbols, his heart racing. I think it's a message. In the command center, 19's frills flared in alarm. Captain. The energy signature from the containment chamber just spiked. It's coming from the toy. What? Drekel barked. What's happening in there? XIX brought up the live feed from the containment chamber. The two human juveniles were staring at a wall covered in glowing alien symbols. The stuffed creature on the floor was emitting a steady beam of light. It's a transmitter, XIX said. The toy isn't just a tracking device, it's sending out a signal. To who? Drekel demanded. Before XIX could answer, the station shuddered violently as a blast struck the outer hull. The lights flickered and warning klaxons blared even louder. The unidentified vessel just opened fire, XIX reported. Shields are holding but barely. Drekel slammed his clawed hand on the console. Hail them. Now. XIX nodded and opened a communication channel. The holographic display flickered, and the image of a tall insectoid being appeared. Its exoskeleton shimmered like polished obsidian, and its multifaceted eyes glinted with menace. I am Captain Drekel of the Intergalactic Security Confederation, Drekel said, his voice steady. You have entered restricted space and attacked a Confederation station. State your purpose immediately. The insectoid being clicked its mandibles, its voice translating into a harsh, grating tone. The juveniles. Surrender them and we will spare your station. Drekel's dorsal fin bristled. Those juveniles are under the protection of the Confederation. You have no authority here. The insectoid tilted its head, its mandibles clicking in a way that almost resembled amusement. You misunderstand, Captain. Those juveniles are not your problem. They are ours. And if you do not hand them over, we will take them by force. Drekel narrowed his eyes. Why do you want them? That is not your concern. The transmission cut off abruptly, and the unidentified vessel began charging its weapons for another attack. Shields at 60%. XIX reported. We can't take much more of this. Drekel clenched his jaw. He didn't know who these aliens were or why they wanted the human children, but one thing was clear, they weren't leaving without a fight. Prepare to return fire, he ordered. And get me into that containment chamber. I need to know exactly what's going on with that toy. Back in the containment chamber, the symbols on the wall shifted and morphed, forming what looked like a map. It's pointing somewhere, Aiden realized. Where? Emma asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, but it's not Earth, Aiden said grimly. The chamber doors hissed open and Drekel stormed in, his expression unreadable. You too, he said, his voice sharp. Tell me what you've done. We didn't do anything. Aiden protested. The toy did this. It's a transmitter, Drekel said, gesturing to the glowing symbols. Whoever gave it to you wanted this to happen. But why? Emma asked, her voice small. Before Drekel could answer, the station shuddered again, and 19's voice came over the comm. Captain, the enemy vessel is preparing to board us. Drekel's eyes narrowed. Not on my watch. He turned back to Aiden and Emma, his tone firm. Stay here. No matter what happens, do not leave this chamber. As he left to prepare for the impending boarding party, Aiden looked at Emma, his resolve hardening. We're not just going to sit here, he said. But what can we do? Emma asked. Aiden glanced at the glowing map on the wall, then down at Mr. Waffles. We figure out where this thing is pointing. and we make sure no one else gets it. The station quaked under the assault as Drekal rushed back to the command center. The unidentified ship was preparing to board, and he knew time was running out. The situation had spiraled far beyond a simple case of human juveniles lost in restricted space. Whatever secrets the stuffed toy held, they were important enough to spark an interstellar conflict. Status report. Drekal barked. 19's frills twitched wildly. The enemy vessel has locked onto our docking bay. Shields are down to 15%. They'll breach in less than a minute. Drekal growled in frustration. Divert power to the internal defenses and seal the containment chamber. I don't care what it takes. Those juveniles cannot fall into enemy hands. In the containment chamber, Aiden and Emma huddled together as the symbols on the wall began to shift again. The map zoomed out, revealing a star system neither of them recognized. A small glowing dot pulsed near the edge of the projection. What is that? Emma asked, pointing at the dot. I think it's a location, Aiden said. He glanced at Mr. Waffles, whose glowing eyes seemed to brighten in response. Whoever sent this toy wanted us to find it? Before Emma could respond, the chamber's lights flickered, and the sound of heavy boots echoed from outside. They're here, Emma whispered, clutching Aiden's arm. Aiden stood up, his jaw clenched. We're not letting them take us. Give me Mr. Waffles. Reluctantly, Emma handed over the toy. Aiden stared into its glowing eyes, determination flashing in his own. If they want this thing so badly, we'll make them fight for it. The first wave of intruders breached the station's docking bay. Insectoid soldiers poured in, their sleek black armor glinting under the station's emergency lights. Drekal and his crew met them with plasma rifles, filling the air with the hum and sizzle of energy blasts. Hold the line. Drekal shouted, firing at the nearest soldier. The alien let out a piercing screech as it fell, but more surged forward to take its place. 19's voice crackled through Drekal's comm. Captain, the enemy has bypassed the outer defenses. They're heading for the containment chamber. Drekal cursed and motioned for his crew to fall back. Protect the juveniles at all costs. Inside the containment chamber, Aiden was furiously studying the map projected on the wall. There's got to be a way to activate this thing, he muttered, shaking the toy. Emma's eyes darted nervously toward the sealed door. Aiden, they're coming? I know, he snapped. Just give me a second. Before he could finish, the door hissed open, and a squad of insectoid soldiers stormed in. Their multifaceted eyes locked onto the glowing toy in Aiden's hands. Give it to us, one of them demanded, its voice translating into a low, menacing growl. Aiden stood his ground, holding Mr. Waffles tightly. Why do you want it? What's so special about this thing? The soldier clicked its mandibles. It is not for you to understand, human. Surrender it or we will take it by force. Emma stepped back, trembling, but Aiden raised the toy defiantly. Over my dead body. The soldier took a step forward, its weapon aimed at Aiden. But before it could fire, the toy emitted a deafening pulse of sound. The soldiers staggered, clutching their heads as the glowing symbols on the wall shifted one final time. The map disappeared, replaced by a holographic image of a being unlike anything Aiden or Emma had ever seen. It was tall and ethereal, with translucent skin that shimmered like liquid crystal. Its voice resonated in their minds, bypassing the need for translation. Children of Earth, the being said, you have been chosen as the guardians of the key. Within this toy lies the coordinates to a vault containing ancient technology capable of reshaping galaxies. It is a gift of great potential, and great danger. Aiden's grip on the toy tightened. Why us? We didn't ask for this. The being's glowing eyes softened. You were not chosen by chance. Your actions, though small, have proven your courage and resourcefulness. You must protect the key and ensure it does not fall into the wrong hands. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving Aiden and Emma in stunned silence. The insectoid soldiers recovered quickly, their leader snarling in rage. You fools! You do not understand the power you hold. Hand it over. No way, Aiden said, his voice firm. Before the soldiers could react, Drekal burst into the chamber, plasma rifle blazing. The aliens turned to face him, but they were no match for the enraged captain. Stay down. Drekal growled as the last soldier fell. He turned to Aiden and Emma, his eyes blazing with fury and confusion. What just happened in here? Aiden held up the toy. This thing is some kind of key. It leads to a vault with powerful technology. Drekal's dorsal fin bristled. And you didn't think to mention that earlier? We didn't know. Emma cried. Before Drekal could respond, 19's voice came over the comm again. Captain, the enemy vessel is retreating, but they've left behind a signal beacon. Reinforcements are likely on the way. Drekal growled in frustration. We don't have time for this. We need to get you two off this station, and take that toy far away from here. What about the map? Aiden asked. Drekal hesitated. He knew the children were too young to carry such a burden, but the hologram's words echoed in his mind. If the key truly held the power to reshape galaxies, then keeping it out of the wrong hands was paramount. Destroy the map, Drekal said finally. The key will stay hidden? No? Aiden protested. What if we need it? What if? It's too dangerous, Drekal said firmly. The fewer people who know its location, the better. Aiden looked at Emma, then back at Drekal. Reluctantly he nodded. Emma clutched Mr. Waffles one last time before handing it over to Drekal. The captain activated a containment device, sealing the toy inside. You'll take care of it? Aiden asked. Drekal nodded. I'll make sure it's safe. As the children were escorted to an escape pod, Aiden glanced back at the station, his mind racing. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. This was far from over. The escape pod launched into the void, carrying Aiden and Emma back toward Earth. In the darkness of space, the glowing dot on the map pulsed faintly, waiting for its true purpose to be revealed. End of story.